This Thursday night, it's time to sample the slow pace of French country living.
Don't kill it, darling. I'm a Buddhist. I could come back as one of those.
Do what comes naturally and blend in with the locals. Eddie and Patsy spend an absolutely fabulous week in Provence, Thursday at 9:35 on BBC1.
This is your magic moment, Margaret Mottershed.
Sisters reunited after 27 years.
I'm glamorous, attractive, have enough sexual charisma to open a factory. She's fat, northern and working class. Of course she wants to be my sister.
No, you're staying with Pat tonight. Well, for as long as you... That what? Pat what? Give her this and get her to go. Do you not want to know about me?
No, I don't want to know.
Am I just to go then?
I can't be seen to have a blood relative with a Lancashire accent and a perm you could go trick-or-treating in.
Julie Walters and Victoria Wood are Pat and Margaret. Sunday at 8:50 on BBC1.
Now on BBC1, Martin Lewis looks at the battle against Britain's biggest crime, burglary, in Crime Beat.
7 a.m. The burglary squad is on the way to pay a surprise call on a man they suspect is guilty of stealing. They've been watching him for some time.
Police! Stand still, police!
The raid is part of a new police campaign which targets Britain's professional burglars. The aim? To transfer the fear of Britain's biggest crime from the victim to the thief.
This your room, is it? So if you go in there, these officers are going to search it.
Most people feel that, having been burgled, that it's a bit like rape. Someone comes into your house, takes all of your treasured possessions, and makes off with them. And really, we shouldn't put up with that. That's not a minor offence, that's a serious offence.
Burglary accounts for almost a quarter of all reported crime in Britain. Last year, there were more than 1.25 million recorded domestic break-ins. And for most of the past decade, house burglary has been soaring at the rate of 60,000 a year.
Burglary is a horrendous crime. It's normally it's the poor people getting burgled, not the rich people, because they have proper security alarms, things like that.
The fact that somebody who you don't know can come into your house when you're not there and sort of go where they want and do as they please, basically. Yeah, that's worrying.
Well, it's not so much the stuff they take from your house, because you can always claim that back on the insurance, but it's what they do to your house once it's in there.
Our house was burgled last year and that was really horrendous. We had 2 people in during the night while we were all sleeping, and just in saying, it's been quite frightening.
Doors a bit hard against the wall, okay?
The latest statistics show that at last burglary rates are coming down by almost 10% over the past 2 years. The reduction in burglaries has been achieved largely through crime prevention. Clear-up rates are not high. Only slightly over 1/5 of house break-ins are solved.
Right from the first days of the modern police service, we were set up with a basic intention of preventing crime. I think that the more exciting end often is to detect crime, and much of the media portrays police officers getting involved in chases, getting involved in arresting offenders, and sometimes in a violent manner. From my point of view as a chief constable, I think from the community's point of view, from your point of view, we don't want that crime to occur in the first place.
Burglars are looking for, I suppose, easy targets is the simplest way of putting it. They're looking for an easy in and out. The easier it is for them, the less work to be done, the quicker to get away. Once they look at a target, they've got to start eliminating certain things. Those things will be alarm systems, lights, fences, things that they've got to negotiate that make it harder. So once you start taking the equations away, what you're left with makes it easier for them.
Sergeant Campbell is a burglary squad specialist, a thief-taker who asks every burglar he catches why they chose the houses they broke into.
this vision of a burglar, you know, a 35-year-old man in balaclava and gloves. And we deal with kids. We interview them day in and day out, from 14, 12, 14, sort of peaking at 25. There's not many burglars above that. Instead of nipping in, stealing a microwave or one article, they're tending to go in now and clearing the house out, filling the wheelie bin and wheeling it away like a wheelbarrow. The one we've just passed had a house number on. If people put their house numbers on, it would help us in locating the property back to that house. As a crime prevention method, again, the other thing is to either chain your bins together or chain them to something at the house, a drain pipe or something. In that way, you're going to prevent the wheelie bin being taken, or it's going to make it harder for the burglar.
There are quite simple things you can do about how your house is to make it less so. Actually, one that one burglar told me, but I don't offer it with true seriousness, but I have done it myself, is if you have a bowl outside the door marked D-O-G, dog, you don't really need to have a dog.
If I was a burglar coming down a road like this, just on the prowl, looking at that house, to me that looks empty. It's got floodlights and it's got a spotlight again, so I'm looking at security. So I'll have a look next door. Again, there's no cars in the drive, there's gates at the side. I can't see an alarm, but again that looks empty as well. There's no movement within the house initially. I'd have a look at that. Probably down the driveway, around the back. This house, again, there's an alarm system, car in the drive. I'd leave that one.
To have an alarm or not, it's a debate that is widespread and split. Those in the forefront of the battle against the house burglars mainly support the value of fitting an obvious alarm, even though virtually every police force in the country is plagued by false alarms, and millions of pounds are wasted each year on pointless call-outs triggered by these things accidentally going off.
Advice that we would generally give people in any case is, first of all, consult your insurance company to make sure there are no requirements from your insurance company. But I think very, very important is that if you do have an alarm system installed, you must notify your neighbours, both at the side and back and front, that you're having this system installed. Because as a subscriber and as a police officer, an alarm activating is no good to either of us if nobody's going to take any notice of it.
Another one on the right. Alarm system, net curtains, you can't see in, so you don't know if they're in or out. It's just a little thing, but it's effective. Such as that house, you can see straight through. Alarm system, but that looks empty. I'd have a look at that one. We have a big problem selling alarms to people, because they say, well, they're always going off and everybody ignores them. Burglars don't ignore them. It's a brave man that stays in a house with an alarm ringing.
This is an attempted burglary in progress in Yorkshire. A rare sight because house burglars have not yet been widely caught on camera.
The house owner has got an alarm system and he's got outside lights. With his outside lights, he went a bit further and he fitted a camera, which was hidden in the garden. Mr. Burglar comes walking around the corner, the camera's running, the lights come on. This is quite a good burglar here. He's not particularly spooked for that. The first thing he does is check the windows, peeps in, anything there. He goes back, has a little feel at the windows, sees which is the best, and he then attacks the patio. The first thing he does is pull a screwdriver from his trousers. Once he starts to lever it and get it going, he removes a larger screwdriver, and that's to give it the final opening. For some reason he can't get it open. Again, it's back to the security of the house. He had patio door locks, he had a better system. He then decides he's going to go to the window and have a go at that. As he walks across, the alarm activates at that point. And he eventually runs across the garden, clears the fence, and there's a line running from the house, clothesline, and you can see it shaking where he's cleared the fence. He's not going to hang around to see if the neighbours come or see if somebody comes out. And that was the alarm. The chap come home, must have just viewed his video, and he just rang up, said, I think I've been burgled, or I think somebody's trying to break in. And it was like an attempt. No, it's just an attempt. One of the lads in the office went up, and he come back, dancing. And he stuck it in our machine, look who this is. And everybody in the office straight away named, oh, it's because he walked straight up with a close-up of him.
So this man may be the first burglar in Britain to be convicted by video.
It's an alarming thought, isn't it, in a way? I mean, everybody's CCTVing everything. And I don't know what effect it's going to have on everybody's sex lives, you know, and everybody's watching everybody else. But, you know, very little will be private. But I suppose it returns us back to the situation of the old villages or towns where people knew when strangers came and went. We will become more the global village.
These tiny cameras can be concealed in almost anything around the house, behind mirrors, inside clocks, even inside books. All you need is the camera and a video recorder. And don't forget to conceal the recorder too. It's no good if the burglar you catch on camera steals the machine that's taped him. As the cost of closed-circuit systems falls, more and more householders are installing them themselves. So too are builders, either in homes that have been burgled or increasingly in new houses, which come with this family defence system as standard. These systems are not about cameras you can see, they are secret, hidden cameras intended to capture on tape those thieves who ignore the first lines of defence. If we can see who the villains are, the police stand a chance of identifying them, or at the very least, putting a face to a set of fingerprints.
Everyone thinks of CCTV as very, very expensive. And now with these ball-type cameras, you know, the cost is just so much greatly reduced. CCTV is preventing crime in the shopping areas tremendously. But of course, where is that crime going? It's being forced out into the suburbs. And I believe that with this type of domestic miniature CCTV, then the criminal is going to look, and it's such a big deterrent that they would just go somewhere else. They will go to another house.
The beauty of your own home surveillance system is that it allows you to swiftly check up on what's happening in and around your house without leaving your armchair. So if you're worried, you can easily set your mind at rest by running a fast check on suspicious noises and sounds, and even taking a peek at your baby in the nursery. The clever couple who live here have hidden a camera in the working smoke detector above the cot. Not to catch thieves, but to allay that perpetual parental worry.
One of the classic things is always asked, you locked yourself out of your house, how would you get in? How would you get yourself back in? And if it meant smashing something, the least damage and least noise possible. And that's how a burglar would burgle your house. So just go out, lock your house up and think about it. And if you find something vulnerable, then do something about it.
Some areas are much more likely to suffer burglary or violent crime than others, and I'm afraid it's the poorer areas. It's inner city areas, it's council houses. It's not because people who live there are worse than people who live anywhere else. It's because there's a lot of people with very little money.
You could argue that a lot of burglary wouldn't occur if there was not a marketplace for the goods that are stolen to be moved on. And it's people who are prepared to buy things at no questions asked prices that actually generate crime.
This here basically is a council estate. You can see these houses on the right. They're currently being renovated. We'll move on to the parts where they have been renovated, but they're building new windows, smaller, they're more secure. Most houses, you can see the council have built porch lights, front and rear. Every little porch has got a light underneath, which is excellent. But just to leave that light on is a preventative measure in itself. The things they're looking for, again, they want to be hidden, they don't want to be seen. I'd have that fence down. And again, we'll just have a run down this street. Immediately, if I was a burglar, looking at that house, you're completely masked. You can be at the windows, you can be at the doors. They're all overgrown, they're unsightly. And what they've done, you can see here, both sides of the street, it's been renovated. They've removed those barriers. You can see the houses now, but there's still the fence. You know, people have still got their own little domain. You have to cross that barrier before you get to them. And then you look at this house, hasn't been done, and you're back to the same effect. Look at that, completely mask the house. It camouflages them. And that's what a burglar will look for.
Last year, around 1.25 million people reported that they'd become burglary victims. But when you start looking at this statistic, you get a shock. Many of them, a large percentage in fact, were robbed more than once, becoming what is known in the burglary business as multiple or repeat victims. The shock is the realization that so many have experienced more than one crime.
Nearly 3/4 of all the crime that happens in England and Wales any one year happens to people who suffer at least 3 crimes in that same year. And there are fantastic figures about how much crime happens to the people to whom it has happened already. 60% of the viewers out there will have no crime happen to them this year at all. Yeah. That's the majority. Most of the crime is coming from really very few victims who have being victimised again and again and again and again. Yeah. And this is what's terrifying.
West Yorkshire has the second highest burglary rate in Britain. Only Humberside is worse. But here in Huddersfield, the forces of law and order are targeting repeat burglary victims to cut the rate of break-ins.
People who have been burgled are far more likely to be burgled again. And therefore, when they've been burgled twice, the likelihood is that increases that they're going to be burgled on a third occasion. So therefore we set our stall out to see, well, what can we do about this? We have therefore a scheme which actually has different levels of involvement of the police and other agencies. And what we do is we actually bring this plan into operation when someone is burgled.
In what is claimed to be the most advanced scheme of its kind in the country, the police, the Home Office and criminologists have set up a special burglary response unit. With the help of computers and what is called crime pattern analysis, the task force aims to help police officers as well as burglary victims. Investigators are taught to understand the needs of the victim more, and victims get a graded priority response when they are robbed.
If you've been victimised once, then that sets in the sort of bronze level response. Second time victimisation, a silver response, and third or more victimisations within a 12-month time period, we instigate then the gold response.
The bronze response involves a package of crime prevention materials, leaflets, ultraviolet marker pens, and discount vouchers for locks and alarms. Another robbery brings a more personal service from the Crime Prevention Division.
That would be my first contact with a victim. That would be the second time victimisation. And I would be expected there to attend either the domestic property or the commercial property, depending on which it was, and to give good quality crime prevention advice.
We can harden that target. We can put better locks and bolts on, we can put cameras on it, we can put sort of alarms in it. We can do various things to catch the people who are repeatedly stealing things from particular houses.
Gold-level police efforts include the use of special undercover surveillance operations.
I've been burgled now 3 times in the last 5 months. This is the actual window, the entry where the people actually get in, and as you can see, it's only small, but you've got the woodlands at the back, so it's a great escape route. Each time I was burgled, different things were taken. I mean, the first time was the worst because they basically wiped me out. They'd taken things from video recorders to camcorders, stereos, radios, little gadgets, things like that. The second time, I'd actually replaced a few of the items, obviously not all of them. So they were, again, the video was the main target, electrical things and other little bits and bats. Just behind me here is just speakers where the appliance has been just ripped out and taken. You know, my full set of stereo system was there. Again, round this area of the house, there was little gadgets, but the children had electrical things again, they were just taken, moved away. The third time, the police have been very good. They've been out here in the cars doing patrols. Because it's an isolated area, we all know who's coming to each house and things like that. Anybody they see different, they're going to stop and question them. So the patrols have been quite frequent, regular through the daytime and in the night time as well.
The Huddersfield Burglary Squad find that most robberies get reported at the end of the normal working day.
And what's his home address?
There's been a burglary at a house out at Skelmanthorpe, which is quite a way out from the centre. It's just about on the edge of our division here at Huddersfield. It's a chap who's been broken into for the third time now. So he falls into the category of the repeat victimisation, which we've been operating now for the last 12 months or so. Obviously, it's a concern to us, and it will be an even greater concern to him. Why are the burglars coming back? That'll be the question which he'll probably be asking us when we get there. Has the scene of the crime man arrived already? Right, OK. It's the third time this gentleman's been broken into, and the second time through this same window. You know, I would be advising for him to look at an alarm.
If you have been a victim of a burglary, the chances are that you're 5 times more likely to be victimised again than perhaps your next door neighbours who hadn't been burgled at all.
The items which you've replaced from previous burglaries?
The TV was, the Kenwood was new.
Right. Okay. I should imagine that they've come back after the replacement goods which have been bought on the insurance. So they've given him a few months or weeks to get the replacements, and then they've come along and taken them again.
Once they've been in your premises, they know the layout of your property, they know how to get in. What you have to do is to make those secure repairs very quickly and upgrade your security so they can't get back in.
Right. Have you any electrical items missing from here? So it's jewellery, and obviously been looking for cash, have the small items.
When people fear burglaries, they fear worst case burglary, you know, they fear somebody coming in a black balaclava and terrifying them, you know, when actually I think most burglary is committed when people are out or fast asleep, and the burglar is very frightened and nips out again quickly.
We've been examining the house for fingerprints, and unfortunately, at the point of entry and throughout most of the attacked surfaces at the house, we've found glove marks. Well, we have found some footprints on the windowsill at the point of entry, and these correspond to light footwear impressions on a footpath which leads round the back of the premises.
It's a UPVC framed window. It's obviously quite modern. At one time of the day we didn't go to many burglaries where people would have tried to gain entry or get out through a modern window like that. But it's the same old case that as the criminal tries and tries, they eventually find a way around the security system. And as on this occasion, they've popped the frame from the outside and managed to pull it open, forcing the frame and causing a considerable amount of damage at the same time. And then obviously they've got their access point, and they've also been back out the same way. The alternative, which is appearing on the market nowadays, is the combined lock and alarm. So if someone was to tamper with it from the outside and cause it to vibrate or bang against the window, then it would activate a shrill alarm inside the house, which would hopefully scare away the burglar.
The officers' reaction in Huddersfield now is very, very positive. They're giving an honest message and actually telling people that the likelihood is the offender may return. But armed with that knowledge, we can do something about it. And gone are the days when we've given the old "don't worry, lightning doesn't strike twice" message, which was perhaps misleading, although it was done with the best will in the world to try and calm people down.
There's some tracks leading across the lawn here.
We've had a 23% decrease in domestic burglary. We've managed to reduce the repeat victims of burglary by 58% in the first 12 months. The officers now are no longer cynical. They believe in what's happening. They've been supportive right from the start. They know that it can be effective, and it works.
The apparent success of the Huddersfield repeat victimisation programme, the 23% decrease in break-ins, compares with the West Yorkshire Police Force area reduction in burglaries of 4%. This Oxfordshire village doesn't yet have a repeat victims policy. The owner of this 300-year-old cottage has been broken into 3 times. He describes his village as a crime black spot and has now taken extreme anti-burglar measures of his own.
When we moved in, I think in common with most other people in the area, we didn't lock our doors. We didn't take any particular security precautions at all. it was a typical, quiet, picturesque little Cotswold village. Of the whole village, something like 67% of the village have had some sort of breaking, theft, or act of vandalism. You know, we do all the right things, we think. We've got a neighbourhood watch scheme. We've got excellent neighbours who look out for one another. But it's heartbreaking. I felt we had to take more precautions. Well, this was the culmination of a whole series of measures I took. This is a tripwire which can be moved around the garden, and I do move them around. And it basically is clipped at about waist height onto a system like this, which can be screwed onto any piece of timber. And the shotgun cartridge is placed at the base. And when the tripwire goes off...
Joe Reeve has gone even further. He's sown what he calls landmines in parts of his garden.
The landmines themselves are like small frisbees, which are placed under the grass, and are when they stand on, you stand on them, they just go bang. I find in practice that the tripwires are much more difficult to see and much more effective. And the other thing, of course, is I can adjust a tripwire up to, say, 1 metre high, so that I'm not going to injure small children, but I will certainly frighten teenagers or people of average height. What I'm working on currently is the development, really, of the landmines that I have been using. This is a paint mine. It has an explosive charge inside, and it's operated in the same way as the tripwires. Inside that, it looks like this. It's a broken open one. This has the explosive charge in, and this is a bag of permanent orange dye, which spreads about 30 feet in all direction, and it's impossible to remove. So that goes around like so, and that can be taped basically to anywhere, tree or anywhere else that I want to in the garden or around the house. Well, the mines have proved effective already. I have tripwire connected on an archway just here, and I was in the bathroom, in fact, in the middle of the night, and heard this explosion, and I saw a young man disappearing very quickly down the garden to the bottom of the garden there. So they certainly work. I think anyone breaking into my property, and my house in particular, is frankly fair game.
I think if I would have caught somebody in my house, I think I'd have done what they would have done. You'd have had a serial killer on your hands here now.
Taking the law into your own hands, even when you're under attack by thieves, is fraught with danger. Your home may be your castle, but you must be careful how you defend it.
It would be really terrible if we all became so paranoid that we thought that anybody who put their foot over our fence deserved to be shot. That idea that trespassers should be dealt with in that way would be quite frightening if we want to have a society that is not going to be riddled with violence.
We all have the right to defend ourselves, to defend our property, and to prevent crime. And to do that, we're entitled to use reasonable force. What we're not entitled to do is to take the law into our own hand and to respond in a way which is wholly disproportionate to the threat posed.
You have to think of what the consequences are if people start taking excessive steps for their own protection. Because once you start doing that, you start having mistakes being done in its name. You start having children killed because they go in to steal apples.
The golden rule really is do not have a go unless it is absolutely necessary.
If you want to know more about crime prevention or the stories featured in Crime Beat, there's a CFAX page dedicated to the series. The Crime Beat number, 620.